confused as to why that happened.
I think the short answer is probably that it's a bug. I've seen that too, and it's just something that we haven't had a chance to look at yet. It seems like anytime you have something in the link set um, that isn't a rigged mesh, it gets into some weird state and becomes non-visible, so it doesn't work as intended.
Do we have some kind of function or script call to attach a new mesh to an Animesh?
Uh,
Or
yeah, I don't know.
link
Is
it?
there a way to manage links in LSL currently?
Yes,
I haven't
yes,
tried
there
to
is.
do that if there is.
There's break links and there's create links.
Okay, so there is a way to do it.
Yeah, you can link objects to scripts or break links. Or attach or unattach.
I will say too that like a lot, and maybe this is just my problem, but I make when I make my animations for an avatar, all the facial stuff is different. That doesn't go in the walk, the idols, all that stuff. So with Animesh, there's this weird thing, and I don't quite understand what's going on, but like initially when you add pathfinding and all that, and you set it to Animesh and let it go, the face just explodes, and that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me because why are the bones moving? They shouldn't move at all, but I have no technical animation playing on it, and hopefully that fixes it. But so that's the difference between Avatar and an Animesh. In Animesh, you're going to need those facial animations in the animations, or figure out a way to do it though.
So sorry. When do you get the face exploding?
Like no, like my walk, idle, all that doesn't have facial animation in it. So then when I add like pathfinding to it, a pathfinding script, and set it to Animesh and res it on the ground, immediately the face explodes.
Even if you're running a facial animation, or is this a problem if you don't have any facial animations?
No, this is without. I haven't tried it. I mean, I tried, but nothing that
Mm-hmm.
works yet. You know, what I need to do is just go in and add all of the bones to the whole animation, and I'm thinking that'll likely work.
Yeah. Huh, I'm not sure where that's coming from, because, I mean, you've got, if no animation is actually touching the face bones, then how are they getting reset? Maybe there's something funny going on with pathfinding. Is it only if you enable pathfinding for an object, or have you seen it with other Animesh objects?
I need a little more time for that.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, that's fine. Just let me know as you find stuff on that. Yeah, I haven't seen that before, but I haven't really played around with the facial animations or pathfinding that much either.
I, I'm thinking we might need like some kind of reset. I don't know. Maybe not. But that when I was playing with it, it would have been nice to reset the bones.
Yeah, I mean the theory is anything that hasn't been animated is just going to be at the default, the default values for that joint, but maybe there's something that's clobbering it that we're not aware of.
Yeah, that's why it seemed really strange to me.
Yeah, and the fact that there isn't anything equivalent to an idle animation or kind of other animations that you sort of get by default with avatars is probably going to cause things to show some discrepancies.
Now that I think of it, it didn't happen with all avatars because I res my elephant and it has nothing different going on. It's just playing a walk. I don't have. Oh, maybe I do have because that has this weird skeleton. I don't know. I got to test more.
Your walk is probably touching all the bones with the elephant though, because it's a very altered rig, right?
Yeah, it could very well be true because I can't just leave bones without something controlling them on the elephant at least. But other than height, the elephant seems to work great. Oh, and the physics of it. That's all messed up.
Do you have the kind of physics bounding box 90-degree rotation issue with the elephant as well?
Yeah, me, Aki, and Beck all kind of
Yeah.
saw the same thing.
Okay. Lucia says the bear characters all use the same body shape. Yeah, since we don't actually support shapes for Animesh, you're just going to get the bones at their default location unless unless you move them somewhere else. Um, and you can define joint positions within the meshes, but you don't have the same kinds of controls that you would have if with being able to like edit the shape on an avatar. Is going to be looked at next, or defined next. We've talked about a kind of a phase 2 Animesh project, where sometime after this goes to release, we, might try to support more kind of NPC-like behaviors, where you would support things like, baking of animeshes and, at that point we'd have support for shapes and the other kinds of controls you get, from your wearable inventory. But that's a big thing that's out of scope for what we're doing right now. Yeah, I mean you really need to really do that right. You really need bakes on mesh too, right? You want to be able to um, include shirts and jackets and pants and all that stuff, and have the baking service composite those things into textures, and then you apply the textures onto your Animesh, meshes. Um, so that's one reason it's a larger project.
Especially considering the limits. Oh, and sitting doesn't work on pathfinding objects. Is that the issue?
I don't really know pathfinding. I don't think that getting animeshes to sit is going to be very straightforward because avatars kind of have their own special way of being reparented as a way of implementing their sitting, and in the case of an animesh object, I don't think it's going to support the same kinds of operations that an avatar does.
Oh, I meant sitting on the Animesh and riding him.
Oh, can you sit on an animesh? Yeah, you can. I mean, the issue is if your animations are moving, like they're displacing the pelvis of your object or whatever, then um, your visual animesh is going to kind of move out from under your sit point. Um, but yeah, I mean, like if you try sitting on the elephant, you see what kinds of issues you get. It basically works, but you get these offsets.
Well, I wasn't able to sit. I don't know if I think it was because of pathfinding, but I wasn't able to sit. But then as I read more, I it kind of seems like I need a sit point to sit on. Is that what
There
it
is a
is?
way you can use LSL to add a script point if you don't already have one. Whether pathfinding affects that, I'm really not sure. Again, I really haven't done much with pathfinding.
Well, I know you can sit on pathfinding objects.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have sat on regular, not Animesh pathfinding things, but it wouldn't let me just initially make it and make it pathfinding and then just sit on it. It wouldn't let me do it.
Yeah, when I was playing around with different test objects, it seemed like some of them had a sit point already and some didn't. Maybe that would be an issue with some of the ones you were looking at. We try actually using LSL to add a scripted sit target.
I actually do have a script where I can drastically change my sit target, so I do have something to do that. Oh, I guess another point along these lines is taking control. I guess that's just a matter of writing some code for that. Taking control of the animal when you ride it.
Yeah, I mean there should be ways that you could communicate with the animal script to tell it where to go or whatever. There's a question about right-clicking multiple Animesh. There are some issues with interacting with Animeshes through clicking. Like when they're animated, you can right-click on them, but when you try to do left-click things to them, it doesn't work right. That's just more bug stuff we need to look at. There's a question about linking multiple meshes together and then trying to animate them. That should definitely be doable. You may need to set the animated mesh enabled checkbox after you do the link. It's a property of the link set that I think basically gets set in the root object of the link set.
So, Ryder, you're saying you could write code to cancel the pathfinding, make it into a vehicle, and then go back? So, like, re-engage that code for pathfinding?
Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't. Yeah, if you simply stop the if you stop the pathfinding, worst case would be I could see you needing to use different states, set up a pathfinding state and set up a driving state. But it should be possible. I've never tried it, but it should be possible.
Let's see, there's a question about Lucia about animating an Animesh from a child prim. Yeah, the way it's set up currently is that the root of the link set has to be a rigged mesh, and it doesn't. It's not particularly happy if any of the other children in the link set are not rigged meshes either.
Would it make a difference if one of the objects has joint offsets and the others do not?
It should resolve that the same way that it does with avatars today, right? You can have multiple attachments that are basically fighting over the joint positions, and then it defines a kind of a tiebreaker process where it'll basically one of those attachments will win. And you don't really have any good control over which one. So generally, you want to try to make sure that your attachments are cooperating with each other. So if you have multiple Animesh, if you have multiple rigged meshes in a single link set, it's going to resolve it the same way, basically. Yeah. Lucia, could you tell me a little more about the kinds of stuff you're trying to do with a non-rigged root prim? So you're trying to you want to be able to actually scale the skeleton as well, right? Yeah, I mean when you've got your when you've got your rigged mesh at the root, there already is a kind of a physical prim. Well, whether or not it's physical, it's the prim as the server sees it, that has a a known position and bounding box. It's just that doesn't always align with the the displayed position that you get from animating the skeleton. But I mean, even if you had some other even if you had some other thing as the root, you've still got the issue of kind of how do you math that? You've got to do something to to tweak the bones of the skeleton to line up something with something, and so we've still got to figure out kind of the best way to do that to to give you enough control. Yeah, I mean the reason there's an alignment issue is because we're kind of reversing the way things normally work, right? Normally, you've got an avatar, it's in a place, and then you stick a mesh on it, so the mesh just kind of flows into position to match the existing location of the skeleton, right? But now you've kind of turned that upside down. You've got this object that's it's there, but it's not animated. It doesn't have a skeleton, and then you're going to make a skeleton, and you have to figure out where to put it, so that and wherever you put the skeleton is where the visual appearance is going to go, right? So you've got to figure out where to put the visual element, the skeleton, so that so that it kind of lines up with what you're expecting the object to do. Or with where you kind of think the object already is, or where the server thinks the object already is. So it's got to get defined somewhere, right? You can't align the skeleton to itself or the avatar to itself. You've got to figure out how to line up how to define its position with respect to the existing object somehow. Welcome to the party. Yeah, we said that that you can have multiple rigged meshes in one link set, and they can all be animated together. So that works now. I just backed up in chat a little bit. Gabadok, I see you had a question about getting 3 meshes that had joint edits. Yeah, you have to make sure that you don't have more than one mesh that's touching the position of a given joint, or at least they can't disagree about where they want the joint to be. If they do, then kind of who wins the fight is something that there isn't really a way to control. It actually resolves it based on the asset ID of the mesh, but again, that's not something that's under user control, so it's effectively arbitrary.
I don't know if Dan can take a minute to talk about his pathfinding script. I'm pretty sure it was Dan who wrote it for the Raptor, because that's the one I've been using. I'd love to hear more about it, though. Like what's going on in there and how it works.
The test content was actually created by the Bulls. Silent Mole did the Raptor. So and I don't think Silent is at the meeting right now, but yeah, I could pass along questions if you have questions.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I'm just assuming Dan writes everything, right?
Well, of course, that's usually a safe assumption. Beck asked about linked animeshes. 3 linked animeshes are able to have 3 separate skeletons. No, it's 1 skeleton per link set. If you link together 3 animeshes, you get 1, or just 3 rigged meshes, then you get 1 skeleton that drives everything. So you could link, like if you link a mesh shirt with a mesh torso, and they're in the same link set and they're playing the same animation, then they're going to line up because they're both getting moved by the same skeleton. Ryder, I saw a question in there about how's windline enhancements going. Want to say anything about the eeping?
If I'm not talking off the top of my head there. Yes, I actually am getting day cycles put together this week. Once that's in, I can start turning it into an actual inventory object, and once I have an inventory object, then I'll create a project viewer, and people can start playing, and people can actually start playing with it. So I'm figuring inventory object by about. I hate to. I'm not gonna give dates, but soon.
A wise man. Scripted link and delink functions are not Animesh friendly. What's unfriendly about them? Just because there's not any then scripted way to set the Animesh enablement flag?
Will there be a way to set that flag script? What script?
I don't know. There is a request for it currently.
Any news on Bakes on Mesh?
I don't have anything new on that. The last I heard from Anchor, there was they're looking at getting one of the modified bake servers set up on one of the dev grids for load testing, but I'm not sure how far they got with that.
I think Bakes on Mesh is going to be a big part of the overall, like, how things work out there, and a big change to the system. So, I really,
Yeah, the full Bakes on Mesh is a fairly big project, and the only piece of it that we're kind of trying to get out the door right now is just the baking service change to raise the limit to 1024, which is a kind of a prerequisite for doing the other stuff. Once that's done, I really can't tell you exactly what the schedule is going to be because there have been some other projects that have come up, and exactly where Bakes on Mesh is going to fit into the roadmap relative to the other stuff, I think is a little bit TBD right now. Yeah. Nothing else that's ready for public unveiling, but various things cooking behind the scenes. Are they shinies or mez? Well, I guess once they're public, you can make the call on that. I'm pretty sure they aren't mirrors. Yeah. All right, folks. I'm actually gonna have to wrap up a couple minutes early this week. So should maybe we have time for one more quick question if there is one more quick question. But otherwise we can wrap it up. If I'm doing the math right, we should still be in the same month next week, so we should have a regular meeting. We'll put
Yep.
the link in for the we'll put the link in for the new location. So next week we'll be meeting on Aditi in the Animesh 4 region, where Alexa set up a meeting area. So if anybody wants to demo their Animeshes, that'd be really cool.
Also, a reminder, please, if you notice bugs or if you have feature requests, please file JIRAs. It is the best way to reach the most people on our side and get it reviewed.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You know, it's fine to discuss things in these meetings or in the forum or whatever, but if it's not in a JIRA, then it's a lot harder for it to kind of have a persistent existence, not get forgotten along the way. Yeah, thanks for the link on that, Harley.
Not going to comment on that JIRA.
All right, well, thanks, folks. We'll be talking to you later then.
Thanks all. See you on Aditi.
Thanks, Fear.